Yes, you wouldn't have thunk it. The highest paid player in NFL history came from the
Mississippi
Mississippi State
State.
University. Week 1 of the 2024 NFL regular season is now officially in the books. We saw the Chiefs and Ravens open it up big time. Really good game. Was about to send into overtime, except Isaiah likely had black cleats. that was the sole reason that game did not go into overtime. If he had white cleats, they wouldn't have been able to tell he stepped out of bounds. His little toe was out of bounds with that black cleat. Chiefs win 27-20. Yes, that's what it was, because now I pull up the ticker with all the scores down there. We follow that game up with the Packers-Eagles game in Brazil, which is interesting because Brazil does not like the color green because of gang affiliation.
Mm-hmm.
So when you have two green teams come to Brazil and play, which is why you had one team white and one team black, you didn't see either team play full green,
I didn't know that. I didn't know that. That's
because of the
interesting.
gang affiliation. Yes. So, and my buddy told me this. I talked to a lot of people about football, and my buddy told me that, so I had to share that. And Noah, if you're watching it, shout outs to you for telling me that fact. But we have people who have not been in the starting position play phenomenal week 1. And I want to point out one specifically, and Nate, you can give me your talk on this. We had Sam Darnold come in for the Vikings, and we talked about the Vikings and J.J. McCarthy getting injured. If you don't remember that show, we said, hey, the Viking season may be over. They invested their number one. They invested their first-round draft pick into a rookie quarterback like J.J. McCarthy, who they wanted to be their franchise guy going into the season, and he ended up tearing his ACL. They had a knee injury in the preseason. Now Sam Darnold stepping up. He was a top 3 pick in the 2018 draft, right?
Mm-hmm.
Something like that. He was a top 3 quarterback, went to the Jets, probably number 2. I think it was number 2. Hey, Demi. And we saw him ball out, Nate. I mean, the Vikings won 28-6. He went 19 for 24, had 208 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, and he did throw a pick, which is like what we've seen from Sam Darnold. But takeaways, Nate. Takeaway from the Vikings. What do you see? Obviously, they did something good that the Giants didn't. What do you think the Vikings did well in this game, and what do you think the Giants need to do to improve? Because obviously Daniel Jones is a question in New York.
Daniel, you know what? But the thing about it is the Giants, in order for them to be a good team, it's like starting from scratch. You have to, really put that offensive line out there, put the position players out there and whatnot. I mean, you lost Saquon Barkley. Let me tell you the players that the Giants have gotten traded and got rid of in the last 6 years. They've gotten rid of Saquon. They've let Odell. If I'm not mistaken, Kadarius Toney was there. They don't have no solid defense. I mean, their offensive line is shaky. Their quarterback play is shaky. But then again, can we blame the quarterback, because he's back there running for his life every time? You want to see the Giants get back to a place of prominence, what we've seen from the New York Football Giants. But oh man. And then on top of that, playing in that New York media, or excuse me, that New York fan base. If you do bad one game, they don't like you. You're getting booed. It's tough playing in a huge market such as New York. It's tough, and it's crazy that Eli was able to sustain as long as he sustained. But with the Vikings, I think with Sam Darnold, they could actually do some things. He's a veteran quarterback. He's a first round veteran quarterback, and he's getting the opportunity to, again, change the narrative that has been said about him, change the narrative in itself. Um, I guess you could say rectify his career, or can we say again a second chance at being a starter, and again showing that he was a number 4 or 5 overall pick in his draft, and just let the world know that his draft position and his pick was no mistake. That he has absurd amount of talent. He can play the game. He just is not in the right system.
I mean, we can look at somebody like Geno and say, okay, well,
Yeah, prime example. And another person we can look at. They were ready to write off Joe Flacco. They're ready to write off Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco comes in off the couch, and if I'm not mistaken, he leads the Browns to the playoffs.
oh, he most definitely does. We saw that they did not get past the Texans
Yeah.
first round. I mean, that Texas team
No.
was difficult to get past, but Sam Darnold, and as we said, the Viking season may be over. The Bears might be worse than the Vikings this season.
I'm gonna be honest with you. Hold
Did
on.
you see that game? That was the battle of the number 1 overall draft pick in the 2025 NFL draft.
But that, like I said to Bruce, the Bears, the Steelers, the Giants. Who else can I say? The Bucks. These are teams that are known for having good defenses. Their defenses have been better than their respective offenses. So the Bears, that defense put on a clinic on Sunday. Now we can talk about the offense, and the offense really being stifled, and the offense not producing and not being able to really get a groove and so forth. And that's your number 1 overall draft pick in Caleb Williams. I don't even know what Caleb Williams was, but the reality of it is they won the game. At the end of the day, when that clock reads 0-0-0-0, only thing that matters is if your team won or lost. That's the only thing that matters. And they won. And that defense, we have to get that defense, that special teams credit. Eberflus, he schematically schemed a good game plan against the Tennessee Titans. I will have to I want to criticize Will Levis on that bonehead pick six, because again, in situations of such, you have to think and use better judgment. Take the sack and not take the turnover. Put your team in a position where it can win. Give your defense an opportunity. But again, that Chicago Bears defense is something special. Caleb Williams is in a solid position. If we think about it, he's in a solid position. It's just, again, he's not going to be forced to be Superman. Just take what the defense, or excuse me, what the opposing team's defense gives you. Don't put your team in bad positions and whatnot. You have a defense that's going to play lights out, and it's going to be hard to score on. They have a lot of talent. So, yeah.
Okay, but we look at the score and we say 24-17. Okay, that is a 1 possession game, sure, and it takes 3 possessions to acquire 24 points. Okay, well, they scored 3 touchdowns and a field goal is what the Bears did to get to that point marking. Let me ask you something. I don't know if you know this. Do you want to know how many of those 24 points? And you said this defense is good. And this defense played great. It played probably better than, if not, maybe the best defense in the league as of week 1.
It was
24 points, Nate. How many of that were offensive points?
It was none
of them.
None.
They 24 points by your defense and special teams.
You had 10 points from special teams, 14 points from your defense.
Caleb Williams was looking like he did in the preseason. Bad. He threw under 50% in the preseason. He did it again week 1. And that Bears offense, I have said it 100 times. It's not that I don't like Caleb Williams. I don't like Caleb Williams on the Bears. And I'm going to talk about this Thursday with the guys. That offense looked horrendous. It was awful. It did not look like they had spent in. They had a Hard Knocks. I think the Hard Knocks went to their head a little bit because what they were showing on Hard Knocks was not what was on the field.
No, it wasn't.
I
First,
mean, oh my gosh, those throws that they were showing Caleb Williams make. I didn't see him make a throw like that the whole game. I'm just speechless. I'm just speechless on how bad that offense was, on that offensive performance.
but like, we got to throw this out there. We got to throw this out there. Were we expecting Caleb Williams to come in there and just be the savior? Were we expecting? And excuse me, right now as I'm moving around my iPad, and as you can see, Nemo's right here. Nemo's right here. He's happy. He's really, really happy. Um, did you expect for Caleb Williams to just come in and just be the savior? That team is going to just turn around and just be a playoff team? No, it takes this. This is week one. This is week one, and we gotta again. It's a 17-game season, and we have to again. Each week is going to be a learning week for him. He's a rookie. This team is a relatively young team. They're going to be learning week in and week out. So we got to be patient. We cannot just, again, throw the book at him and call him a bust. We have to give him opportunities to develop. We got to give him the tools necessary. And, the Bears have to give him the tools and everything necessary needed for him to develop into a franchise quarterback. So
I get it.
We can't come quick to judgment already.
You're right. And although I can sit here and kind of whine and cry about these offsetting performances and that did not meet my expectations, I want to talk about tears of joy that rolled down my face this Sunday after watching the New Orleans Saints performance against the Carolina Panthers. It looked like the offense, the defense, the special teams looked like a well-oiled machine. It looked like something that I was missing way back when Drew Brees was the starting quarterback. And I'm not comparing Derek Carr to Drew Brees, but Derek Carr threw a very good game. He went 19 for 23, 200 yards, and 3 touchdowns. I mean, this is the first time the Saints offense has ever scored the first 3 offensive drives in a row under Dennis Allen. That is an accomplishment. You bring in someone like Clint Kubiak, who I was hyping up before on the breakdown, saying, hey, this is the guy who has credit for a lot of Brock Purdy's success in San Fran. He was the passing games coordinator. He caught a lot of the shots when it came to passing. Well, now you bring him as the OC in New Orleans. How good can he? What can he do with Derek Carr? Like, obviously, people say you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Yeah. Derek Carr was pulling tricks out the bag I haven't seen before in New Orleans. It was so amazing. I had the chance to go out with my buddies and watch some Mississippi State volleyball, and I stayed in my dorm and watched the entirety of this New Orleans game, and it made me so happy. It made the rest of my day. Now, Sundays are already good enough because I get to go to church and whatnot, but when the Saints drops 47 points on the freaking Panthers, it was so beautiful. It was a happy marriage, and all I could do was sit there in awe and watch the beatdown happen. What are they doing in New Orleans this year they didn't do last year, Nate?
I don't think Derek Carr was healthy. I don't think he was healthy. I mean, this is the first game of the year, and we're playing against the Carolina Panthers, who really had a rough year. So, I mean, our expectation and reality. I'm gonna tell you the difference between the two and how they correlate. Expectation is what we see and what we think, and what we assume. The reality of it is the final product and what you see. Our expectation is when you see the Saints going against the Carolina Panthers with a new coach, a second-year quarterback. This team is still in the rebuild stage. You expect the New Orleans Saints to dominate them and beat them. The reality of it is that they did exactly what the expectation was. Now, again, the Panthers are still an NFL franchise, yet we cannot take out of context the fact that Derek Carr, he's a 10-plus year vet in the NFL, and he was expected to perform the way he performed. they pay him big money for him to go out there and perform. So that's that. As you can see, the kids are around there.
No, and I agree. I wasn't too. Derek Carr's first half of the year was about the same as Andy Dalton. And Saints fans were so quick to say, and including me, obviously I wasn't putting him on the same level as Andy Dalton, but Saints fans were so quick to say, oh, this is another Andy Dalton year. Well, the second half of the season hit, and Derek Carr, although not 100% healthy, looked a lot better than he did. He made a tremendous upgrade to his season and the second half of that season. I mean, a lot of people were saying he looked MVP level the second half of that season. And statistically, maybe so. Maybe so. And when I look at him now, can he carry the second half of that season into this season? And if he can play the full season he played the second half of last year, I think we can do a lot with Derek Carr doing the helm, because on the St. Brown Brothers podcast, they brought Cam Jordan on, and they're like, okay, well, the Super Bowl's in New Orleans this year. Do you see the New Orleans Saints having a possibility in playing in the Superdome come February? And he said, if you see us in the playoffs, expect us to be in the Super Bowl. And of course, somebody that's been there a long time, knows the culture, everything. You got to kind of take what he says to heart.
You got to expect that too. You got to expect that as a competitor. As a competitor, you want to go in there every season with the mindset that you're going to win the Super Bowl, that you're going to win your division, you're going to go to the playoffs, you're going to win the Super Bowl. That's why we play the game. Play the game for the championships. You know what I'm saying? Because again, that's one of the things. You know what? Money can be taken away. Money can be lost. You know, and whatnot. You can spend it. You can squander it. You know, you can make a lot of it, and so forth. You know, and money comes and goes. But one thing that can never be taken away from a player is being a champion. The title of being a champion. And there's so many players, so many great players. I'm talking about some of the greatest that to ever lace them up have gone their whole career without competing for a championship or winning a championship. That's the beautiful thing about it.
I don't expect the Saints to make the Super Bowl. Obviously, if they did, I might drop a couple grand to try and go watch them play at the Super Bowl. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, Nate, to have your team play home field advantage in the Super Bowl. It is only ever happened one time ever. When's the other time it happened? Twice.
Tampa Bay and LA.
Oh, did LA play in SoFi?
They played in SoFi when they won the Super Bowl.
Oh, okay. Well, excuse me, I didn't know that. But thanks, Nate. I had a feeling that might have been the case. But regardless, it'd be once in a lifetime. But we have now seen something happen once in a lifetime. Let's talk Dak, Nate, before we end this segment. He has now signed, it's on the ticker at the bottom. They have agreed, him and the Cowboys, to a 4-year, $240 million contract extension with a record-setting $231 million guaranteed. Now, we know Dak's injury history. Is it going to happen again? He's broken his ankle before, had to be out for the season, but he looked dang good last year. Now, the Cowboys were able to beat the Browns 33-17. Dak only threw 19 for 32, 179 yards and a touchdown. It's not the highest paid QB in history numbers, but like you said, it's only week one. We're going to see what happens. So, Nate, what can you expect now from the Mississippi State alum being the highest paid quarterback in history? Was it a good move to keep Dak in Dallas? I know you don't like the Cowboys, but give me your expert opinion.
All right, expert opinion and being completely unbiased. The best move that Jerry could have made was keep Dak there. What quarterback are you going to get to come there and actually produce as Dak has produced? Dak has done, you know what, because Cowboys are quote unquote America's team, and they're the team that, again, has the magnifying glass. You have a Hall of Fame owner who's out there doing all the interviews and, speaking and doing the radio shows and the TV, TV pressers and so forth. And again, this team, you know, you look at the tradition of the Cowboys, what the Cowboys have produced as far as players and players that have walked through those doors. Um, it's just always expected the Cowboys compete. Dak has done a tremendous and phenomenal job since his rookie year. And there is I think at times he gets the wrong end of the stick. Um, when it comes to placing the blame and shouldering the blame on him, when the game of football, the game of basketball, the game of baseball, competitive sports, it's a team aspect, it's a team sport, and again, you cannot take out a consider or excuse me take you have to take into consideration that again, one player does not make or break a game. It's a collective, it's a team effort. So seeing that he's been rewarded with a contract that he deserves, and ultimately we seen last year that Dak had tremendous, phenomenal career numbers. He deserves that he deserves that raise. I mean, again, but the pressure is going to be on him. We look at all the quarterbacks that have gotten new contracts: Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow, Tua Tagovailoa. There's so many different quarterbacks, and I know I'm missing some right now. But Trevor Lawrence, a lot of these quarterbacks that have gotten these big contracts, the pressure is going to be on them to again succeed. Why are we paying you if you can't succeed? And the target is the target. The real target is on the back of the Kansas City Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes is still the cream of the crop. Patrick Mahomes is still quarterback 1A. And a lot of these quarterbacks that have gotten these contracts, you want to be 1A. And that's the thing. With Dak's new deal, it's going to be expected that he leads this team to a Super Bowl. So, I mean, there's nothing else to say. I mean, 240, 60 million annually, you're going to be expected to expected to compete for a Super Bowl. You know, Going to the playoffs is not good enough anymore. It's not. That's mediocrity. And that's listening to the words or excuse me, listening to an interview with Patrick Mahomes, where again he stated that making the playoffs is not just it's not enough for him anymore. That's the mindset of a Thomas Edward Patrick Brady Jr., where again, making it to the playoffs, that's not good enough. That's not good enough for me. There has to be some substance with making to the playoffs. And when I say substance, there needs to be some hardware that's accomplished. You need to be playing in the second week of February the next year. So yeah, that's what it's about now.